In 2002, Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon Movies released the Wild Thornberrys Movie, one of a number of feature films based on the hit television series. What's interesting about this movie in particular is how it was an important part of not only Nickelodeon's history, but Klasky Csupo too. To understand its place, we have to go back to 1998, when the Wild Thornberrys television series premiered. The series told the story of a young girl named Eliza who acquires the ability to talk to animals. Each episode would have her solving a problem using her powers, while her father, Nigel Thornberry, hosted a nature show. There was also her camerawoman mother, Marianne, her disinterested teenage sister, Debbie, her adopted feral brother, Donnie, and her chimp companion, Darwin. With the show's world-hopping setting allowing for multiple visual depictions of jungles and savannas and the various talking animals that inhabit the series, the Wild Thornberrys was able to attract a significant amount of attention and become one of Nickelodeon's most watched animated series. While the focus is primarily on Eliza and her exploits, I always thought Nigel was the standout and kind of wish the show was about him. As aided by Tim Curry's superb voice work, Nigel's eccentric phrases and behavior led to the show's most memorable and funniest moments.
And they're not mermaids, they're dugongs!
A few months after the Wild Thornberrys hit the airwaves, Nickelodeon released its first animated feature, the Rugrats Movie. Most animated series brought to the big screen tend to just create longer episodes, but to Klasky Csupo's credit, they largely avoided that with Rugrats. The Rugrats movie opened the world up, increasing the peril factor and taking the babies to the woods. This felt like a genuine movie, rather than an extended episode or 4 episodes stitched together. The animation also did more than add some extra shadows. There was a cinematic quality in the way the camera moved. The character animation was a lot more fluid than on the television show, and the backgrounds were especially well defined. I think these factors led to the Rugrats movie's enormous success and becoming the first non-Disney animated film to make over $100 million. With how much money that movie made, it was little surprise Paramount sought to use the Nickelodeon brand to make more big-screen adventures. Obviously, a sequel was immediately greenlit, with Rugrats in Paris getting a theatrical release only 2 years later. With its impressive television ratings, the Wild Thornberrys was a definite candidate to get its own movie, and like they'd done with the babies, Klasky Csupo gave the proper time and care in adapting this nature-loving family into a feature film. Between the release of Rugrats in Paris in 2000 and the Wild Thornberrys movie in 2002, Paramount and Nickelodeon made a few curious decisions with mixed results. One was to have the newest Nick property, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, become a movie before a television series began airing on the network a year later. This was quite the gamble for them, but it paid off thanks to a brilliant marketing campaign that had little shorts air on the channel, months before the film was released. This was that clever way of introducing the young scientist and inventor to children, and Jimmy Neutron became an Oscar-nominated box office success. This putting the cart before the horse strategy was later used for Barnyard, which did decent business, and this year's Wonder Park, which, not so much. The other thing Paramount and Nickelodeon did was release the Hey Arnold movie in theaters. The Hey Arnold movie, like the Wild Thornberrys movie, was greenlit in the wake of the Rugrats movie's success in 1998. However, unlike the Rugrats movies, Hey Arnold the movie was not made for the big screen. It was a television special that Paramount thought should be released in theaters, inexplicably replacing the Hey Arnold Jungle movie that the show's creator, Craig Bartlett, did intend for cinemas. That movie pulled in minimal grosses due to being a longer episode slapped into theaters, not unlike what Disney did with Doug's first movie a few years prior, which, funnily enough, was formerly a Nickelodeon property. Hey Arnold the movie is a notable case where merely putting an animated series on the big screen is not enough to bring in the paying crowds. They can watch the show on television, so there needs to be a special incentive to see these characters projected in a larger format. The Wild Thornberrys movie, to its credit, did exactly that. Like they'd done with Rugrats, Klasky Csupo pushed the animation to a more cinematic quality with the Wild Thornberrys movie. The setting, primarily on the African Serengeti, allowed for impressive shots of the landscape, especially the way the sun sets on the location. The increased budget from the television series allowed the animators to include even more roaming animals, and there are also some good computer-generated effects. Part of the reason the film was critically acclaimed was also because the filmmakers did not assume everyone in the audience had intricate knowledge of the characters. Like the show, the opening explains Eliza and her family's backstory through narration and montage, so the newcomers are not left out. One interesting creative decision is the expansion of Eliza and Nigel's relationship. He was often the goofball of the show, but the movie shows another side of him as he shows his admiration for Eliza's spirit and animal-loving nature. It adds another layer to their father-daughter relationship that I don't think was explored quite enough on the television series. From there, the film becomes a standard adventure, with a fish-out-of-water element thrown in when Eliza and Darwin end up at a boarding school. The story is ultimately rather simple. While the filmmakers accomplished making the film look cinematic, it still feels a bit like a longer episode at times. Nonetheless, there are some decent stakes with Eliza trying to stop the poachers, and the ending does provide some character growth. As someone who thinks The Wild Thornberrys is an okay show, I also think the movie is okay. I think it does the job of giving the fans what they hope for from a Wild Thornberrys movie, while still attempting to tell a story with proper character development and the humor that is characteristic of the series. Paramount certainly had big expectations for the movie, giving it a prime Christmas release date. While it had a low opening, it managed to have decent staying power over the holidays. However, it only slightly recouped its budget, and I assume Paramount had hoped it would form at the very least like Rugrats in Paris. The movie did end up getting an Academy Award nomination for Paul Simon's original song, Father and Daughter, which is a sweet and heartfelt tune that would not have been a bad winner. That nomination is a pretty nice feather in its cap. Adding to the pressure on the Wild Thornberrys brand was that another movie starring the family was right around the corner. Rugrats Go Wild was released only 6 months later with mild fanfare. When Paramount gave the go-ahead to this crossover event, they probably thought the combined popularity of these two series would lead to a decent-sized box office success. However, by the time the movie hit screens, the popularity of Rugrats was winding down, with focus then turning to the follow-up series All Grown Up. The Wild Thornberrys would also finish its run a year later. Rugrats Go Wild did about the same numbers as the Wild Thornberrys movie, and that led to second thoughts from Nickelodeon about adapting their animated series into big-screen movies. With its incredible popularity, it's not shocking a SpongeBob SquarePants movie was released in 2004 and did very well. Nonetheless, a Jimmy Neutron sequel was cancelled, and a Fairly OddParents movie never got off the ground. The Wild Thornberrys movie was a film that benefited from Paramount seeing Nickelodeon as one of their major content producers, and gave Klasky Csupo the budgets and freedom to make sure these theatrical films were worth the cinema ticket prices. It's an admirable work that also respects the audience with its themes of parenthood and environmentalism. That the Wild Thornberrys movie is still remembered fondly by those who saw the film in its theatrical release at least says something, and its place in Nickelodeon history is certainly important to take note of. See you next time.